Okay, it looks like we're still waiting on the chairperson so that we'll have quorum to start the meeting. She did say she would be about 5 minutes late, so we should be expecting her shortly.
Good evening.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. I had a very embarrassing planning board meeting last week where my microphone was not working at all.
Well, we can hear you and we are ready.
Okay. It seems like we have a lot of attendees. We have someone. Oh, can I not see the questions that someone has their hand raised?
Yeah.
For the person that has their hand raised, can they submit questions? Pam, do you know?
Doesn't look like.
I think they can. For whoever has their hand raised, if you could submit a question or a comment so we know who you are and why you have your hand raised, that would be great. I apologize for being late this evening, but it being 6:08, I do call to order this meeting of the Brockton Conservation Commission on November 18th, 2020. This meeting is being broadcast over the Zoom network due to coronavirus and physical distancing mandates issued by the governor. If you have, let's see, I'm trying to think. I don't have those instructions here. If you wish to speak and you are zooming in via computer, you can raise your hand. And I will entertain comments from the public pertinent to a project that is being discussed. And after all presentations and questions by the board are complete, I think, is it *9 if you're calling in by phone, Pam?
Yes.
*9 will allow you to raise your hand to be recognized by the chair as well. I want to make a note that we have a number of items. We have a long agenda today, and I am going to keep the meeting moving along. If you do have questions or comments, and they have already been stated previously, I will recognize you, but I ask that you simply state that you have the same question or concern that might have come before. Let's see, we have continuances.
Just one, I believe.
It's just Belgravia.
Yes.
Yes.
Number 9 on the agenda is a notice of intent for Belgravia Avenue, and they have requested a continuance to the January meeting. Pam or Megan, what date is that meeting?
I believe it will be the 15th is the third Wednesday in January.
Okay, oh, that's right, weird. So anyone here for that meeting, they have requested continuance to January 13th. Do I have a motion from the board to continue the meeting for Belgravia Avenue to the 13th?
Joanne Zigmund here. I'll make a motion to continue Belgravia Avenue to, sorry, what was the date?
It's the 18th, actually, for
18th.
2021.
January 18th.
Yes, should be the third Wednesday in January is going to be the date. So January 18th, it looks like.
Do I have a second?
Sparks here, I second.
Danielson, aye. Bonnie?
Sparks, aye.
Zigmund, aye.
Motion passes. The first item on the agenda is a request for determination of applicability for the Mbta community rail right-of-way. And can we make those, if you could raise your hand if you are here as a representative for that project?
I'm a representative.
Everybody share their screen. Could you please unshare your screen for a moment? Or was that you, Megan?
It was not me.
Okay, if you are here for the Mbta Request for determination of applicability. Could you please raise your hand so we can make you panelists? Is it just you, Matt?
It's just me, and I think Clary Kutu is on the call as well, if you could
Do
allow
you
her
think
to.
she's called in? I don't see Claire on the attendee list. Okay,
Okay.
I'm going to assume Claire's the individual who called in.
I'm allowing them to talk, whoever that is,
Okay, thank you.
the phone.
I don't have control over the attendees. So,
Yeah, so it might just be
Right.
me for now.
okay. Okay. If you would like to give a summary of what you're here for, and then I will ask Megan to go over her report to the commission.
All right, so if you don't mind me sharing my screen, I can pull the RDA submission up.
No, that's fine.
So this is the map we've submitted to you. This is all on the vegetation management website that we have for Keolis. So as you can see, all the towns are listed and you can choose the individual maps. You can also get the 5-year vegetation management plan and the yearly operational plans. We will always send this to you via certified mail, but this is a handy tool for anyone who wants to stay updated on the vegetation management. So this was submitted as required by CMR 11 and specific sections of CMR 10, requiring us to submit the maps to confirm the boundaries of the resource areas are accurate. These requirements are part of a 5-year vegetation management plan, which is currently under review by the Massachusetts DAR for permitting. The 5-year vegetation management plan, as part of it, we will update your commission, the Board of Health, the Board of Selectmen, and the Department of Agricultural Resources annually with the yearly operational plan. This will always be consistent with the 5-year vegetation management plan, and we'll go into a little more detail of the vegetation management activities for each year throughout the plan. The vegetation management plan includes an integrated vegetation management approach where chemical application as well as physical and mechanical methods are used in an effort to combat the vegetation. The best management practices are used throughout this plan in an effort to limit the use of chemical application, which has been a main objective for Keolis. The maps we provide you with on the screen, they were mainly made for the chemical portion of the plan. The maps the resources are shown with USGS and MassGIS layers to depict the sensitive and protected areas. And we do get a list of all private wells adjacent to the railroad from the Department of Agricultural Resources. I can confirm that this map is the same map that your commission approved in 2016, the last time that this was permitted. We do check for any updates in the delineations, but I can confirm that this map did not have any and is the same. So as you can see, there are areas that are depicted as limited and no spray zones based on the blue and the yellow colors. In the field, the railroad tracks are marked with the same color-coded system as you see, and they correspond to the same locations. There is a spray truck applicator who's certified and licensed to do this work in the state of Massachusetts. They are accompanied by an environmental monitor who is a direct employee of Keolis's environmental team in the truck, working with the operator as necessary, and they will always have these maps on hand to alert them when these areas are coming up. And the environmental monitor for Keolis is familiar with all of this territory to begin with. Most importantly, the yellow zones will never receive any form of herbicide outside of the track structure itself, which is federally mandated to keep free of vegetation with no alternatives. In the blue zones, in these blue zones, they're limited spray zones, so they'll never be sprayed more so than the 1 or 2 years, depending on whether it's light or dark blue. In these zones, the roadbed will always be sprayed in these zones, the track structure itself. As far as outside of the track structure, that will really only be sprayed on an as needed basis if the vegetation and the conditions call for it, then, and if it's needed, then it would be. But in these zones, the yellow and the blue zones, more of an effort is taken into physical and mechanical methods to control the vegetation, which due to the proximity to the protected areas. So that in 2016, your commission approved these maps with a positive 2A determination as well as a -5, and we are requesting for the same determination to allow us to conduct this work as we have done so in the past and will continue to do so. So that's a overview of the process and the maps, and I can open the floor up to the commission with any questions.
Actually, the chair will open up the floor. Thank you. Megan, if you would summarize your report.
Sure. So having reviewed the maps and the RDA, I think the commission can consider issuing the positive 2A. I would say it would be for BVW only, since that is what I assume the orange national wetlands layer refers to. I don't believe these maps distinguish banks, riverfront from BVW. The commission may want to consider if the maps are at a scale that they're comfortable granting that 2A, but I would say that's the determination that the commission should consider granting for this. I would not recommend issuing the -5. I know it was issued in 2016, but I made note that the only exemption this qualified for was the 310 CMR 1058-6A, which is vegetation work in riverfront area. And so my concern with granting a -5 would be that these maps are showing resource areas beyond just riverfront. There are potentially banks in BVW that the right-of-way passes through, and the railway right-of-way clearing does not have any other exemptions for these resource areas. So other exemptions that usually apply to public utilities do not apply to rail lines. And so for that reason, while riverfront vegetation clearing would be exempt under the exemption I described above, any other work proposed in other resource areas would not be exempt. And so I don't believe a blanket -5 determination would be appropriate.
Okay, and the commission did receive a letter from the MACC, and which is the Mass Association of Conservation Commissioners, and the MSMCP, whose acronym I can never remember, but it is, I believe, a group of wetland professionals. And Megan, if I'm not mistaken in my reading of the letter, and did the other commissioners get a chance to read the letter from the MACC and MSMCP?
Yes.
Okay. If I'm not mistaken, I believe their conclusions match your conclusions.
I believe so, yes. Their primary concern, again, is that the exemptions being referred to issue a -5 refer to public utilities. So for example, I believe one of them is 310 CMR 10.22A2. Again, that is an exemption for maintenance work within public utility right-of-ways, but that regulation is very specific on what they consider public utilities, and it doesn't include railways or railway rights-of-way.
Okay. I don't have any additional questions of you or the applicant, Megan. I think you did a good job of laying out what the commission should be considering. Joanne, do you have any comments or questions?
I don't have any questions, but I am kind of struggling with the scale of this map. It's a little bit difficult at this scale to figure out exactly what's being proposed to happen exactly where. I don't know how the other commissioners feel about that.
I would tend to agree.
Yeah.
Bonnie, do you have anything you would like
So-
to add?
Yes, I do have a question that's related to the spraying itself. It's basically where manual is the initial objective, but spraying may be done. And so I'm kind of curious as to what those factors are that would lead away from the manual removal of the growth and into using the sprays and the chemicals.
Mr. Donovan, would you like to answer? You need,
Yeah. So the chemical application, there's two main chemical application events each year, which is the pre-emergent and the post-emergent application. In the fall, I mean in the spring, the track structure itself throughout the entire railroad will receive a pre-emergent application. This is for the track structure itself. There is no mechanical methods that can prevent the vegetation on the track structure. It's a ballasted material, which is 1.5 inch stone and ties. So really that always has to be sprayed. As far as outside of the track structure, that is where the mechanical methods come into play, and that these areas are always being determined throughout the year by the environmental monitor and the maintenance crew of how to best use the best management practices to combat the vegetation via mechanical or chemical methods.
I have a question. Doesn't the simple use of the tracks keep vegetation down within the track bed?
No, it doesn't keep it off the rails. So no,
It doesn't.
it would never be allowed to grow to where a train would play a role in that. It's the herbicide application that keeps.
Is there, because in Bonnie, did you have anything else to ask? Because I do have a follow-up question.
No, please go ahead with your follow-up.
One of the things I wanted to mention, I am not a proponent of chemical applications. The chemicals that are used are pervasive and persistent. They have an adverse impact on the environment, and I'm not a proponent of them. I just find it hard to believe that at an active trail bed, just by nature of the movement of the trains over the tracks, wouldn't keep the vegetation down to a safe level. So that's just my comment. Any other questions, comments from the commissioners?
None from me.
Okay. So Megan, it's your recommendation that the board issue a positive 2A determination,
I think,
and
yes, it could be granted. Again, I would say stipulating calling it BVW. Again, I think what their layer refers to as national wetlands appears, based on my comparison to for example, DEP's mapping, it appears that the national wetlands match up with BVW. So I think the positive 2A should say for BVW, just because from the plans they've submitted, I don't think there's any way to distinguish banks or riverfront area. So I think it would be a positive 2A just for the BVW, which is what's visible on the maps.
and then also a positive determination on 5. Am I?
There is no positive. I think that is sort of the converse of the -5. I'm just recommending not granting the -5.
Granting the negative, okay. Do I have a motion to issue a positive determination 2A and to not issue a -5 determination?
Are we treating the -2 determination in the same vote as well? Megan recommended not issuing -2 and also not issuing -5.
That's what I thought I said, but
Sorry, I thought you just said -5, but just making sure we're on the same page. Okay.
I'm saying not
Positive
issue,
two.
not issue a -5. So I said, do I have a motion to issue a positive determination 2A and a negative and not issue a determination on 5?
And that captures the recommendation for not issuing a -2 determination?
I don't think you need to vote to not.
Because you're giving it a positive.
You're giving, right,
That's,
right.
yeah, okay,
Yeah.
that's
Giving
what
it
I'm
a
Sorry,
positive.
sorry,
Sorry.
I've been doing this too long, Joanne. The positive is the opposite of a negative. And what Megan is saying is there's not really an equivalent positive for a -5.
Gotcha.
Yes.
You think they make this language a little bit easier. All right, so it's Joanne here. I make a motion to issue a positive 2A determination.
Okay, do I have a second?
Sparks here, I second.
Danielson in favor?
Joanne in favor?
Sparks, aye.
Okay, motion passes. And
Thanks,
we don't need
everyone.
to take a vote on the -5 because we're not acting on it, so. All right. The next item on the agenda is a request for determination of applicability for 223-261 Thatcher Street. And again, if everyone who is here representing that project would please raise their hand so we can make them a panelist. Okay, do we have all our panelists identified at this point? Okay, so let's see, are there, I need to get my little thing back. Jay Kroll, you have, I'm going to ask that you lower your hand because you should be a panelist. I see your name there. I'm going to ask, this is simply for a show of hands because I want to provide some instruction. If you are a member of the public here for this project, could you please raise your hands? Okay, so we have no members from the public who are here related to this project, this application. Okay, very good. All right, hi Amy, how are you?
Hi, Stephanie, how are you?
I'm well, long time.
I know, I know.
All
So-
right, who's going to start?
I believe that'll be me. So for the record, I'm Amy Ball. I'm a
Lose your
senior
mark.
ecologist with the Horsley Witten Group. On this call as well is Jason Kroll. He is the design engineer, and I believe Bill Grogan from the Planning Office for Urban Affairs, who is representing the applicant. We're filing this RDA in conjunction with a filing with the planning board for site plan approval of an affordable housing project that will redevelop the property at 223-261 Thatcher Street, which is existing convent, into a 175 unit mixed income residential development. The project is in compliance with the requirements of the City of Brockton's zoning ordinance for the Thatcher Street Smart Growth Overlay District to provide much needed affordable housing and mixed income housing in the city. The project itself is just outside of the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetative wetland. And the reason we are here with the Conservation Commission is that as part of the site plan approval, the applicant is required to consult with the other permitting departments in the city. And we were advised to file an RDA with the Conservation Commission. With that, that we are just seeking a negative determination to allow the project to move forward without further review from under the Wetlands Protection Act from the Conservation Commission. And I believe with that, I will just turn it back over to the commission for questions. I kind of glossed over some of the details. In fact, I probably didn't really give you any at all. Jason, who's the design engineer, can fill in and answer questions if there are any regarding the
Okay,
design.
thank you. Megan, would you?
Yes, so there are bordering vegetated wetlands near the southern boundary of the site that have been flagged and verified in the field both by Beta Group and myself. I was out there as recently as this past Monday and again reconfirmed that the line is accurate. My only note was that flag 24 needs to be replaced, but other than that, the boundary was accurately delineated. And based on my site visit and my review of the plans, I can confirm that they are proposing a limit of work outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. Approximately 140 feet of that limit of work is positioned along the boundary approximately. So all work is proposed 100 or more feet away. And so my only other comment was I did note that there are 2 stormwater outfall structures located near but outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. So just checking the stormwater report and the current watershed report, currently about 69% of runoff, both overland and from the existing roof runoffs of the convent, currently go to the BVW untreated. The stormwater management that's being proposed is proposing reductions in the peak runoff rates and an increase in TSS removal up to 80 to 99% removal. So based on that, even though there are 2 outfalls within the vicinity of the 100-foot boundary, I don't see any expectation that stormwater rates or water quality will be negatively impacted as they reach the BVW. If anything, they should be significantly improved from what is currently flowing overland to the BVW. So based on those observations, I would recommend issuing the -4 determination that states the work described in the request is not within an area subject to protection under the Act, including the buffer zone. Therefore, said work does not require the filing of a notice of intent unless and until said work alters an area subject to protection under the Act.
Okay, I don't have any questions or comments. Joanne?
Nope, none.
Bonnie?
Sparks, no questions here.
Okay, do I have a motion
Joanne?
to issue a -4 determination? And I believe that Megan is suggesting we include the language that she just read for us.
That is the -4 determination. I just
-4.
wanted to clarify. Yes, that is
Okay.
the language of the -4.
Okay, so do I have a motion to issue a -4?
Yep, Joanne here. So I'll make a motion to issue a -4 determination.
Second?
Sparks here, I second.
All in favor? Danielson, aye?
Sparks, aye.
Zigman, aye.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much. Have a good evening.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Thank you. You're welcome. The next item on the agenda is a request for determination of applicability for 82 Ames Street. Would all those here representing that project please raise their hands? Okay, we've already made them panelists. Whoever's manning the panel knows who everybody is. That's great. Okay. Who's going to be speaking?
Okay, Madam Chair, Bob Rigo with Riverhawk Environmental.
Bob, do you have video?
Yes, I do. Oh, yeah, you know what? There we go. I have a cover on my camera.
Okay.
So again, Bob Rigo for Hawk Environmental. We submitted a request for determination for the project. There was some work done out there, and there was questions by the commission and the agent, I guess, of whether the work was within a jurisdictional area. There's a there's a drainage channel which basically bisects the property from the western and eastern portions of the property. It's stone lined and it feeds into a culverted brook that runs within, and I don't know the name of the road without the plan in front of me, but
Trout.
I'm sorry, the name of the road?
I think it's the Trout.
Yeah, it runs into the Trout Brook, exactly. So basically we investigated the drainage channel. It's a stone line, man-made channel, and it's just, there's no up-gradient resource areas or down-gradient resource areas. So it was our opinion that it was non-jurisdictional, and submitted that under the request. As part of the request, we also show on the plan that a portion of the site is located in a land subject to flooding. There's a zone A, no elevation determined flood zone on the, I believe, eastern portion of the site, which does exist. So I believe in Megan's report, she cites that that's the case, and that maybe a negative determination isn't appropriate, but I thought maybe we could just get confirmation that the resource areas as delineated are correct, and that there's no jurisdictional stream or intermittent stream or riverfront or BVW, but there is in fact some land subject to flooding on the property. And if we do work in the future in that area, certainly we'd file a notice of intent with the commission.
And
That's
what is the proposed project again?
Oh, there is no proposed project. I mean,
So you're seeking a confirmation of the wetland resources through the RDA process,
correct.
which is my I do not like approving.
Well, the only reason we submitted, I apologize, Madam Chair. The only reason we submitted was the commission told us to stop working, that we needed to submit an RDA. So that's why we did it. So we weren't looking for confirmation of resource areas. It was just looking to show that we weren't working in resources that were under the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission.
Okay, so now I'm confused because you just said there isn't a project and yet you were asked to stop working.
Well, they cleared vegetation. They cleared vegetation on the property in an
That's
area.
work.
Okay, yeah, they cleared vegetation. There will be a future project, but there hasn't been, there's no project other than clearing that's been approved or filed for or even drawn or.
Okay. Megan, please remind me, was this one of the enforcements that we have discussed over the last few months?
Yes, so it started as an enforcement correspondence that we received reports of work being done near a potential stream. So at the time, I did go out there and confirm that clearing had been done. I took a look at the channel and thought, at first glance, it was questionable, so that I thought the site warranted an RDA to clarify, take a closer look at the potential resource areas, because there was a question that there could be resource areas on the site. And so that was why the initial enforcement action took place, to stop the clearing work and take a look at the site.
Okay. Joanne or Bonnie, do you have any questions or comments at this time?
This is Sparks here. I just wanted to echo what you said, Stephanie, as far as I don't feel particularly comfortable having no project and yet we are clearing an area And if you don't know what the project is, or there is no project, then why are we clearing in the first place? Like, why are we here? And so that's, I mean, I understand that you're asking, you know, where the lines are drawn, as it were, but we're already clearing, there's already, but why?
Oh,
Excuse me, if I may step in. My name is Robert Tukmanian. I'm the owner of the property. So initially, prior to purchasing the property, I did approach the building department and asked the building inspector, the building commissioner, whether it was a problem or not if I were to clear the land. And I was told multiple times, and even after purchasing the lot, I approached the building department, and they did give me approval to go ahead and start cutting and clearing the property, which is why I begun. And then when I started the project, when I started cutting and clearing whatever was on there, all the garbage that was accumulated on the property, there was mounds and mounds of garbage. There was old tires, there were needles, and just all kinds of things on the property. So initially, pretty much after I purchased and closed on the lot, I just wanted to clear it up, get everything organized, and that's why I started clearing, which brings us to the point when Megan came out to the property and then told us to file for a request for determination. So that's pretty much the rough timeline of where we are and where we stand.
Okay. And so I'm going to loop back around that this really all started because, and I do remember, and you were at a previous meeting, Mr. Tukmanian,
Yeah, Tukmanian. Yes, I was.
that you were given approval by the building department to clear, probably based on their understanding of, you know, from a building standpoint, they don't oversee land clearing. So with them, it was fine. And maybe Megan, that's something, a conversation with the building department, that if they are asked by someone, if it's okay to clear their land, that they make sure they say, from our perspective, it's fine, but you need to go and clear it with the Conservation Commission, or even with the planning board, or even the DPW, because, you know, with the new NIPDs and the MS4 regulations, that's not a good answer, that yes, you're fine to go clear, without indicating that you might need to talk to somebody else. So
We have
really
had that
tonight,
discussion, Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, you've already had that.
Yes,
Thank you.
we had that discussion right away.
Yes, I'm assuming so. So really tonight is so his work stopped.
The day that Megan approached us and told us to file for a request is the day we stopped work and we set up the erosion barrier where the drainage conveyances, and we have not touched it since that day.
Okay, is it your intent to do, or your wish to do, additional work and cleanup at the site?
Yes, we would like to clean it up. We'd like to get rid of all the garbage. I know there's a lot of old tires and just miscellaneous wood and broken down materials on the site. We just want to clear it up. We want to get rid of anything that could cause any harm. I know there's a couple needles and dirty things down there, trash, rubbish. We just want to clear all that, get it out, get everything organized, and make the lot a little bit more presentable.
Yeah, and before I continue on the vein of what is under the commission's jurisdiction, I just, you know, it's my civic duty, and as someone who represents the city in some capacity, to remind you that you should be calling the police department to remove needles that may have been disposed of illegally onto your property. And if that doesn't seem to be timely enough for you, then please make sure you're taking all precautions when you're removing such items. And properly disposing of them so that they don't have the potential to prick someone else. That's my public service announcement. Getting back to the commission. So Megan, would this be, if the commission issued a negative determination, again, and you recommend not because the area is within a floodplain, I think the commission's kind of between a rock and a hard place on this in what we need to do in what Mr. Tukmanian needs to do to be able to proceed in an area that he can clean up.
Yes, so it is tricky because again, this started basically because of the drainage channel. So that was originally why I went out there and what the review started with. And so I did, based on all the information available, I don't think the channel is jurisdictionally considered a stream under the regulations. However, as I stated in my report, my concern about granting the -1 is the floodplain, the bordering land subject to flooding. So again, that wasn't the initial focal point of the initial enforcement, but upon receiving the RDA and reviewing the property lines and reviewing the available information, the fact that the Zone A FEMA flood zone does cross onto the property, it makes it difficult to grant a negative determination 1, because technically that Zone A is still an area subject to jurisdiction. So
can we do this? Can we issue a positive determination 1? And I don't have the RDA right in front of me to refamiliarize myself with the different levels, but can we issue a positive and then have the applicant file a notice of intent to do cleanup work, which would entail needing to do it, he'd need to provide a description of the work that he was going to be performing at the site, and the commission would issue an order of conditions with conditions as to what he could and could not do.
right, so it's hard, we can't issue any of the negatives we can't issue any of the negative determinations that are related to work because work has not been proposed.
Yep.
So I think in this case, because no work is proposed under this RDA, because we can't, or I'm hesitant to grant the -1, the converse is the +1. That is that the area described on the referenced plans is an area subject to protection under the Act.
Right.
Removing, filling, dredging, or altering of the area requires the filing of a notice of intent. So that would cover the fact that a portion of the property is bordering land subject to flooding, and an NOI should be filed for any alteration proposed to that portion of the property. Again, unless, or another filing would have to be made, whether it's an NOI or an RDA that actually proposes work. Either way,
Yeah.
something else would have to be filed following a +1 determination.
Okay, so what the commission should be doing is voting to issue a +1 determination. And the property owner instructed that any work that he'd like to commence at the site will require some type of filing with the Conservation Commission, whether it's a request for determination of applicability or it's a notice of intent. And Mr. Rigo, you look like you're raising your hand.
Yes, yeah, I don't know if I share my screen, but most, a large portion of the site is outside of the jurisdiction of the commission, so it's only a very small portion that's already a paved portion of the site, and maybe a small of the vegetated portion that's within the jurisdiction of the commission. The whole rest of the site is outside of that land subject to flooding. So he doesn't have to file for work outside of the commission's jurisdiction, does he?
I think you meant to ask, and maybe this is what you said and I didn't hear it right. I think what you are trying to say is he doesn't have to ask to work in an area that is not within the commission's jurisdiction.
Correct.
That would be correct. Does Mr. Tukmanian, do you know exactly where the non-jurisdictional area is and where is it flagged?
Yes, so about 95%, maybe even more, is outside of that flood zone. So that flood zone, whatever is marked as that Zone A flood zone, it's the corner of the property off of Ames Street, and it's already been paved and looks like it has been paved for years. So, and we're not even proposing, there's no clearing to be done in that zone.
Megan, would you concur with that? Have you done enough of a site assessment to be able to concur or disagree with that?
It is mostly paved, so that little, again, it is only a portion of it. Most of it is paved. There is a small section that is unpaved. And I think you can see it on the plans. Basically, there is edge of pavement that shows sort of it's kind of like a driveway that goes in.
Mhm.
We have no intentions of doing any more clearing in that flood zone area, just because it's already fairly been cleared, and I believe it's right up against the street. So we wouldn't even be going near that area for the time being.
And it could be marked by survey in the field. It's the line says demarked on the FEMA floodplain map, so it could be easily shown.
So the zone A is the portion of the site that abuts Ames Street. if I'm
Correct.
reading this
That's correct.
Correctly. So I'm a little confused because it looks like the property is, it looks like it's two lots. Are these two co-joined lots?
So it's one large lot, and the drainage conveyance splits it in half, if that's what you're referring to. And then there's an abutting warehouse that we also own, that is 74 Ames Street. So
Right, okay. Mhm.
74 Ames Street also is in that flood zone as well, the corner of
Mhm.
74 Ames Street. Maybe that's what you're looking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. Megan, do you have anything else to add?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Would this be to approve a +1? Was that so that any further work would require a permit?
Yes, a positive determination 1. So that any work within the BLSF would require filing.
So if we issue a positive, does that, because the drainage channel isn't jurisdictional, but the land subject to flooding is. So if we issue a positive for this one, does that mean that the drainage channel falls under that? Or do we have to treat two of these separately? How does that work?
I think on the form, Megan, you indicate what the resource area is.
Not for a positive one. It
Okay,
just says area described on the referenced plans is subject to protection under the act. Removing, filling, dredging, or altering of the area requires the filing of a notice of intent. So, I mean, if that's too vague, the other option could be to, again, if everyone's comfortable with how the FEMA floodplain is shown on the map, the alternative would be to issue again the 2A, confirming that the reference plan shows the resource area, and that in that case you do specify what resource area is being shown. So in this case, it would be a 2A saying that bordering land subject to flooding, and that would just mean that becomes binding to that corner being bordering land subject to flooding. I know sometimes they go back and, you can get a LOMA or something, but, I think if the commission grants the 2A and we agree that that corner is bordering land subject to flooding, I think that's binding. But I
Yep.
think that's a determination the commission could make and then solidify that that corner is a resource area.
Okay, that makes sense to me.
And that means that we just ignore the culvert, right? We don't have to move on that in any way at all. It's just not jurisdictional.
Correct.
Okay.
Right,
Correct.
because we're not including any boundaries of a resource area because it's not being considered a jurisdictional area. So the only boundary that would be specified would be BLSF for the floodplain.
Okay, so then Joanne here, I'd like to make a motion to issue a positive 2A determination for the bordering land subject to flooding.
Do I have a second?
Sparks here, I second.
All in favor, Danielson, aye.
Sparks, aye.
Zigmund, aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Tugmanian, thank you for coming in and responding to this notice from the agent.
No problem. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation for lot 29, actually map 128, lot 29, Salisbury Street. And do we know who's here for that one? If you could raise your hand. Scott, are you here for that? Scott Faria?
No,
No, this
it's
wasn't.
Fallen.
Oh,
Fallen
sorry, that's right. Yep.
We should clarify that if you are either the applicant or a representative, please raise your hand. I think if it's a member of the
So Stephen
public, we
Cavallo
will.
has just been, he's here. Judy Walsh and William Murray have their hands raised. If you are just a member of the public, please put your hands down at the moment. Judy, are you representing the project? Mr. Cavallo, is Judy Walsh with you representing the project?
So she's been my point of contact on this project. I'm not sure how she's related to the owner, but she has been my point of contact.
Hi, this is Judy. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Mr. McDuffie's real estate agent.
Okay.
That all you need?
Yes, we're gonna have
Okay.
Mr. Cavallo present. I think at this point, representing the project wouldn't exactly be the role I would say you're playing as a professional, because we would be talking to land surveyors, engineers, or wetland scientists. So thank you for the
She's-
clarification.
she's been muted temporarily.
Right, yeah, good. Okay. Mr. Cavallo, would you like to give us a description of the site? And do you have a plan you want to share?
Yeah, I've got the plan that's submitted. I could share if you would like.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful for the commissioners.
Can everyone see that okay?
Yep.
Okay. For the record, my
Mike,
name's
if you could zoom in just a little bit, it will probably
Sure,
be
sure.
easier for people to see as well.
For the record, my name's Stevie Cavallo of Farland Corp. We're here basically to get the wetland resource areas approved. Wetlands were delineated by Brad Holmes of Environmental Consulting and Restoration back in March. The property is a vacant piece of property adjacent to Salisbury Plain River. the river's kind of transformed throughout the course of its life. There used to be, it used to be kind of a natural river that kind of winded along this property. And then at some point in time, it was altered by means of putting some sort of wall, stone wall. I'm not sure who constructed the stone wall. So it's kind of a very strange piece of property in the sense that the property line is this dashed line, which actually goes on the other side of the stream. It's just a very complicated piece. And you can see through this plan, we've kind of highlighted the resource areas and tried to gray out the areas that aren't on our property. It's got obviously the top of bank and a little bit of a associated bordering vegetative wetland. It's also, if you can zoom in here, there's a sewer easement that goes through the property. So there's quite a bit of restrictions on this property. At this point in time, we're just looking to get the wetland line approved so that the applicant can see what he has as far as value and use that in order to move forward with the planning phase if he decides to.
And I just have one comment before
Sure.
I ask Megan to review her report. Salisbury Street is not a finished road, correct? An improved road?
This portion of it
It's
is
not constructed, right? Okay.
I'm not sure down the other side, but it is noted that it's not constructed at this point in time.
Okay. Megan, would you like to summarize your report, please?
Okay, yes, so I reviewed 2 resource area boundaries as part of this ANRAD. I reviewed inland bank to the Salisbury Plain River and the BVW associated with the river. So there were 2 flagging series out in the field that I confirmed to be accurate. Generally speaking, the bank was observed as the first break in the slope along Salisbury Plain River. So the slope down to the river is fairly steep across most of the site, but there was a definable first break that was flagged as the bank, and then slightly up gradient for the most part of the bank. There is a second break that was flagged as the BVW, and I would agree is generally where the BVW falls. There are a couple of places where the BVW breaks in. So for example, about halfway down the plan, you can see there, yes, so there's a group of flaggings. There's an area of lower topography there where that second break in the slope continues inward into a sort of depression. So the BVW line extends into that area. Similarly, on the far right, there was another series of flags called Series B, and you can see it's sort of a projection that comes into the north side of the site there. That projection actually continues north off-site. It connects to a larger BVW that transitions into shrub swamp and then a larger wet meadow, but it just projects slightly as a continuation of the red maple swamp onto the site itself. So based on that, I could recommend issuing the order of resource area delineation, determining the boundaries to be accurate for the BVW and bank. I will make note that the FEMA firm map indicates that the entire site is within FEMA flood zone AE. But in terms of the flagging series presented on the ANRAD, what's definitely been flagged in the site is the BVW and bank. So I would recommend an ORAD confirming those delineations.
Okay, I don't have any questions or comments. Bonnie?
No, it's an odd piece of property, but no, I don't have any questions.
I don't have any questions either.
Okay, this is a hearing. Do I have a motion to close? And did we receive mailing? I mean, this requires an abutter notification, right? Did we receive confirmation?
Yes.
I should have asked that first. Okay. Do I have a motion to close the hearing?
Do we have public comment first?
I was looking before, it didn't look like there was any. There were no Q&As, and Judy has her hand raised. Judy, I really, at this point, I think we're all set, and because we have a number of items on the agenda, unless you have something really critical.
This is actually Scott McDuffie. My computer is broken, so I asked Judy to come over here so I could use hers. So that's
Okay.
why you're getting her computer, but I have observed the entire meeting. I just wanted to let you know I am here.
Okay, all
Okay.
right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Scott. Okay, so no, I don't think we have any other, so do I have a motion to close the hearing?
Joanne here, I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Do I have a second?
Sparks, I second.
All right, all in favor, Danielson, aye?
Sparks, aye.
Zigman, aye.
Okay, do I have a motion to issue an order of resource area delineation?
Joanne here, I'll make a motion to issue an order of resource area delineation.
Do I have a second?
Sparks here, I second.
All in favor, Danielson, aye?
Sparks, aye.
Zigman, aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The next item on the agenda is a request for certificate of compliance for 1020 West Chestnut Street. And would everyone who's here representing that, Scott Faria? I'm guessing Scott's on my thing now. Scott, and Scott, is anyone else with you tonight? And you can unmute your. I don't see any other hands raised at this time. Scott, would you unmute your, thank you.
I was trying very hard, Stephanie.
I know, yeah.
Getting better.
Oh, man. I
All
can't
right.
be over.
And do you have video, a video?
But you got to give me some time.
All right,
There it is.
okay.
All right. All right. Not that it matters, but I had 12th Ave up first, Madam Chair.
I'm sorry?
I had number 5 was 12th Ave.
Oh, yes,
Not
yes,
that
yes.
I've got the next 4, so I don't care which order we go in. I just didn't want
No,
to.
12th, I'd like to keep an order. I'm sorry. I checked it off my list prematurely.
All right. You can just issue if you'd like, but.
Yeah,
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Scott Faria for 68 12th Ave. It's an order of conditions that was issued a couple of years back. Applicant's name was Frankie August. Frankie was putting an addition on his parents' house. The addition has been completed. It was within, it's a tiny lot, about 100 by 100-foot lot at the very end of 12th Ave. The addition was going within his existing yard area. His backyard is all lawn area, fenced in. The BVW is just beyond his chain link fence in his backyard. So it was a pretty simple approval at the time and in a fairly easy construction project. Siltation control was put in and I'm pretty sure is actually still in place. But so everything seems to be good. The only small issue is he has a shed on the property that he just recently put on the property. It's a shed on blocks. He went to City Hall to ask about it, went to the building department. Building department told him he didn't need a permit for it because of its size. So he just assumed he was good to go. We saw it and sure enough, as I said, it's within his yard area, within the area that he cuts his grass every week, but nonetheless, certainly within the 25-foot buffer zone. So we submitted the plans just because it was under the deadline. He insisted that he'd be able to get it moved in time for the meeting. So we submitted it with a note saying shed to be removed, to be moved out of the 25-foot buffer zone. I spoke to Megan about it. I think right when we filed it, just to make her aware of it, that there was a shed there and hopefully he was going to get it moved. So long story short, not this past weekend, weekend previous, Frankie went out to move the shed, hurt his back trying to move the shed. Not surprisingly, it's a good sized shed. So this week he got a fork truck to move it, and that was yesterday. And to be 100% positive, to be 100% honest, I don't know for sure that he got it moved out of the buffer zone. My guys are out there about 3 o'clock. The forklift was there empty in the shed, but I don't know if he got it. I tried to get in touch with him today and couldn't, and I just ran out of time getting out there to look at it myself. So I think everything is good on site except for that shed. We know it has to be removed. The one, I guess, question I would have is how much of an issue is it that we have to move it outside of 50 feet, I guess. We're hoping we could just move it outside of the 25-foot buffer and leave it at that. So it would still be in his backyard within his fenced-in backyard area. As opposed, if we've got to get it to the 50-foot buffer, it basically goes into his front yard and doesn't work as well, obviously.
Okay, so Megan recommended two things. One, that the shed be relocated.
Yep.
And she recommended the 50-foot in order to be considered a minor project. So that was the stipulation, that you would need to file a new notice of intent or an amended notice of intent, or because the way the Wetlands Protection Act is written, it's only a minor project if it's outside the 50-foot buffer. And then the second recommendation was that, well, actually it's three, the permanent limit of work markers be installed.
Yep.
And then that the erosion control barrier be removed.
Those are,
So it sounds like, in reading Megan's report and understanding what qualifies as a minor project, that if he wants to leave it, he needs to come back with an amended order of conditions, which
Okay.
requires a new notification, a butter notification, and continuing the hearing. I personally, and I think the other commissioners would agree with me, I would not vote to issue tonight with those three things outstanding.
Yep.
So I'm going to ask Bonnie and Joanne if they have anything else they'd like to add or other comments they'd like to make.
No, none.
Yeah, Sparks here. I don't have any further questions.
Okay, so you can either continue the request for certificate of compliance and then confer with your client to see if he wants to file an amendment.
yeah, I think so. I'll talk to him tomorrow and see if either he moves it 50 feet away or he moves it 25 feet away and we file for an amendment.
Yeah.
Either way, I should be able to get an answer at some point this week. So I think if I can just get a 1-month continuance, Madam Chair, I should be able to make that work. Even if I'm filing an amendment, I think I could get that in for your next meeting as well. I think the deadline is next week, so I'd be able to make that anyway, so.
Okay, do I have a motion to continue the request for certificate of compliance to December 13th?
Joanne here, I'll make a motion to continue the request for
December
certificate
16th?
of compliance to December 17th.
I thought, Pam, did you say 13th or 17th? Megan, Pam. I don't have my December
16th.
16th.
16th?
One
Oh, I've been
six.
saying the 13th all night.
Well, that was January. but
No, that was
that's not-
January. Okay, all right.
It's
That
So
wasn't
not-
right either.
The third Wednesday.
All right, so the 16th, do I have a second?
Sparks here. I second.
All in favor, Danielson, aye.
Sparks, aye.
Zigman, aye.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, now, 1020 West Chestnut Street.
Yes, ma'am. Again, Scott Farrier from Holmgren Engineering. 1020 West Chestnut Street. We were before you folks last month for a certificate of compliance and had a few items, probably 4 or 5 items, I guess, that we needed to take care of. At that time, we asked for a continuance. So since then, we've done a little bit of work with Megan and Mbta in the applicant, the contractor, in my company, we've been out there trying to look at things and figure out first what went wrong and then how do we resolve it. So I guess the bottom line is the paving, it isn't all that wide behind the building. It's only 24, 25 feet wide. Didn't have that much pitch, but unfortunately, when they put the paving in, it's pitching the wrong way, pitching away from the gutter, pitching away from the catch basins towards the gutter. And there were no structures in the gutter, which is why they put the brakes in the curbing, in the riprap, hoping that would take care of it. After meeting with Megan and Mbta out there, we came up with a solution, fixing the curbing, putting a solid row of curbing there to prevent the water from dumping into the drainage ditch that's out there, and installing 3 or 4 structures along that gutter that will introduce the water into the drainage structures and ultimately into the storm scepter, into our drainage, underground drainage leaching area, and take care of it then. So it's a few more structures to go through, but it's all getting through the storm scepter and into the leaching area like it was designed to do. So we have that. We, kicked everything around. We finally came up with that plan, I guess you'd say, last week. We talked to Megan about it. Megan, I think, sent it over to Mbta, and Mbta sent us a letter saying they agree that that would be a viable solution. We kind of just came to that conclusion, I think, on Monday. So they're anxious to get going. So they should be out there before the end of the week to get going on rectifying that issue. The one thing that they could take care of that they did was the pile of debris that's actually off our lot from the abutting property, but they removed that last week. So they've at least resolved that one issue. And the other issues that we had, the cleaning of the sediment within the brook at the outfalls, they'll take care of that at the same time. So I think we've got no issues with any of the concerns that both Mbta and Megan came up with. Now that we've kind of got the green light, I think we can get everything going probably next week at the latest, and we should be all set at your next hearing.
Megan, can you corroborate that?
Yes, so basically, in addition to the housekeeping issues that were mentioned, so clearing out the outfalls, clearing out the catch basins, that housekeeping that was commented on in the 2 letters will need to be addressed. And then the major issue that we talked about on the site was those curb cuts bypassing the pretreatment. So again, we had Mbta look at the revised sketch of how to redirect the runoff to those pretreatment units. And Mbta said that what's been proposed should be sufficient to meet the same pretreatment that had been approved. In terms of the wetlands, looking at the proposed plan, I don't see any issues from the wetlands perspective. It looks like the new structures are going within the existing paved area, and then those curb cuts are being closed up. So I would say the only precaution from the wetland side is that they should reinstall the erosion controls just past the Cape Cod berm where they're going to be doing that work within the pavement. But other than that, there shouldn't be any impacts to the wetland resource area as long as they put the erosion controls back up.
We'll be sure.
Okay, so really on this is just the only action at this point is a continuation while you folks do the work.
Right.
Do you want to continue to the December meeting? I think the commission would like
Yes,
that, so
please.
we can get an update. And then the erosion controls need to be reinstalled.
We'll take care of the erosion immediately, and hopefully we'll be good to go at the December meeting, Madam Chair.
All right, Megan, I'd like to ask Mr. Faria that his client get in touch with you when they're ready to begin work, so you can do an inspection and make sure the erosion controls are in place and everything's in good order.
Okay.
We'll do that.
All right, commissioners, any other questions, comments?
Nope, none.
No questions here.
Okay, so do I have a motion to continue to December 16th, December 16th?
Joanne here, I'll make a motion to continue to December 16.
Second,
Sparks here, I second.
all in favor, Danielson, aye.
Sparks, aye.
Zigmund, aye.
Okay, the next item on the agenda, 196 Manley Street.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Scott Farrier again from Holmgren Engineering. For 196 Manley Street, similar situation. We were before you folks last month for a certificate of compliance for the work that they've done out at Equipment East. And again, we had some deviations from the plan and a report from your agent. And as of yet, my client hasn't been able to get his contractor out there to begin to rectify the situations. The main issues was a stone driveway alongside the building and a piece of the gravel area in the back that's within the 25-foot buffer zone that wasn't supposed to be there. So it's the removal of that gravel within the 25-foot and the removal of the patch of stone alongside the building. Those are the major issues. Then there was, again, a couple of housekeeping issues that needed to be addressed. But as I said, as of yet, he has not been able to get his contractor out there to get started on it.
Okay, when you say patches of, wasn't a roadway constructed, a gravel road behind the building?
It was alongside the building is the stone.
Driveway?
Yeah, connecting the front to the back. So
It's
that
a driveway that it road. It's not just a patch of gravel.
it's, we'll call it a driveway then, sure. Right.
I mean, a patch of gravel to me is not even the size of the room I'm in right now.
We'll call it a road then. It would be a
Thank
very
you.
big change. So,
Thank you.
so that was the crushed stone driveway that Megan spoke to in her first recommendation, and to restabilize his grass. So that's certainly the biggest issue. And then again, the current strip of grass alongside the gravel that was supposed to remain in its natural state that was loamed and seeded. That needs to be revegetated as well. So the plan was to get them to begin that work, remove the gravel, the stone driveway, and get in touch with the botanist to come up with a restoration plan.
At the last meeting, my notes indicate that we were giving your client until this meeting to come up with a plan and start taking action before issuing an enforcement order. No action has really taken place, and I think we need to entertain issuing an enforcement order. Bonnie and Joanne, comments? And Megan? Does anyone want to comment on that?
This is Sparks here. I just echoing what you just said, which was my question, had you not already said it was going to be about enforcement, considering the
Yeah.
amount of work that needs to be addressed and that hasn't been, so nothing further.
Okay, thank you.
And same here for Stephanie.
Okay, Megan, I'm assuming you're on board with that.
Yes, I would say you could issue an enforcement order incorporating the comments from the last meeting and my report. Right now, we don't have Beta's complete comments because they need an as-built that shows all of the structures. So part of the enforcement order could be that we need a revised as-built in addition to my comments.
Mm-hmm.
That much I can take care of, Madam Chair.
Good, thank you. I'll be right with you, folks. I'm writing down what the motion's going to be. Okay, so do I have a motion to issue an enforcement order incorporating Megan's previously made comments regarding the non-compliance, and for the applicant to provide an accurate as-built plan, accurately depicting the conditions at the site?
So moved. Joanne Zigmund here.
Do I have a second?
Sparks here, I second.
All in favor, Danielson, aye.
Sparks, aye.
Zigmund, aye.
Thank you. Okay, And the next item on the agenda, plots 41-4 and 41-41, Lot B, 496 North Carey Street. And this is a notice of intent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Scott Farrier, Holmgren Engineering, for CLM Development. I think this is our third meeting with you folks. We had everything pretty well wrapped up as far as our vegetation issues. There's a lot of mitigation that needs to be done out on the site. We have a report from Brad Holmes that was submitted prior to the last meeting that I think your agent was good with. The only thing that came up was a request just to shift the house a little bit further from the vernal pool at the rear of the property. The previous plan had it, I believe it was 68 feet, I believe, either 66 or 68 feet. And we've since moved it 20 feet. So now it's 88 feet away from the vernal pool with that corner of the house. And we kicked it a little bit as we talked about. In addition to that, we shifted over the siltation control a little bit as well to follow that. So hopefully that satisfy the any concerns that you folks had.
Okay, Megan, do you want to go over your recommendations?
My recommendations would be the same as was outlined in my October 16th report. So I believe my comments on the erosion control barrier have already been addressed. So in terms of the order of conditions from my report, I would still recommend the same additional special conditions regarding the removal of the knotweed and the monitoring by the wetland scientist, and then the 3 continuing special conditions, the standard no herbicides and the permanent markers. And then also I'm recommending a continuing condition of no de-icing chemicals except for calcium chlorides, in particular because this is a site in the vicinity of a vernal pool and a resource water from the Rocky Mountain Spring Company parcel. So I would recommend that additional continuing condition.
Okay. Can you confirm, because I don't think I didn't see the original, or I didn't have time to find the original, the previous version of the plan. Can you confirm that in fact it was moved and shifted?
Yes, the distance has been increased to 88 feet from, I believe it was, let me just confirm if it was in the 60s there. It is now at 88 feet from the resource area.
It was
And
60.
let me just double check. Yes, it was 68 feet. It is now 88 feet. So it has been moved as described.
Okay, thank you for doing that. Thank you for confirming, and Scott, thank you for having your client
You're welcome.
work on that. Any comments from Bonnie or Joanne?
Joanne?
No comments here.
Okay. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Joanne here, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
Sparks here, I second.
All in favor, Danielson, aye.
Sparks, aye.
Zigmund, aye.
Motion passes. And do I have a motion to issue an order of conditions, including the recommendations made by our agent in her report?
Yes, so let me just ask one question. Megan, in your report, the continuing special condition about herbicides and pesticides, you stated that the alternative would be with the exception of for Japanese knotweed, unless approved by the commission. So you're suggesting either language, one or the other?
Yes, so that was originally from our discussion of if we were going to permit all mechanical removal or the herbicide removal. I believe our decision was to go with the all mechanical.
Mhm.
So the language in the order of conditions would just be the standard no herbicides or pesticides are to be used at the site, because my understanding is we wanted the special condition about the Japanese knotweed shall be removed using the mechanical methods described in the invasive plant control memo. So if that's still the agreement the commission's taking, then there's no need to add that caveat to the continuing condition.
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion to issue an order of conditions with the special conditions as outlined in the conservation agent's report, and in particular, the no herbicides or pesticides, full stop.
Do I have a second?
Sparks here, I second.
All in favor, Danielson, aye.
Sparks, aye.
Zigmund, aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you. Somehow I lost page 2 of my agenda. Ah, found it. The next item on the agenda is a notice of intent for 53 Baker Street. And do we have, who do we have here for that hearing?
Azu's
Azu.
coming.
Good evening, Azu. You need to unmute yourself.
Hello,
Is it
good evening,
you
Madam Chair.
Good evening.
Yeah, you know, I am technologically challenged, so,
There you go. We can see you now.
okay, amen. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the commission. I believe we have not really formally opened this hearing, but I have been speaking with our Ms. Shave regarding the comments and the historical context for this project, which obviously I was not involved with the project some 18 years ago. I've only been involved with it since since April of this year when we filed a request for determination of our applicability. What I'm hoping, Madam Chair, to accomplish tonight is that from the history of the applicant and the property in question, I believe he used to own another portion of the property that is now being taken over by the city of Brockton. There is still an outstanding enforcement issue relating to that property. What I'm hoping that we can do is keep the enforcement action still ongoing with the abutting property that he used to own. But since my application in the instant project is specifically for this lot in question, I am hoping that we can move forward with the notice of intent that we have before you, but I ask for a continuation so that we can prepare a restoration plan for the work that was done with the sewer that runs from the west to the east, east being Baker Street itself. So I would like to do that, have an opportunity to put together with our wetlands consultant, put together a restoration plan for that, as well as remove the fill that needs to be taken out of the 25-foot buffer zone and move there at least 80 feet away, and he can do that. He's got room to do that, 80 feet away from the resource. So without the benefit of the restoration plan, I don't think that I would be able to move much further, other than to say that that is what I'm hoping will be the approach that may be or could be acceptable to the commission. Still leave the enforcement action open for the other property, and then deal with the enforcement action on this particular property that I'm working on. And we will attempt to incorporate the comments that were raised back in 2002 relating to this particular property and all the restoration issue. And I think that needs to be done in order to have a workable plan that the commission might consider issuing an order of conditions for. But at this particular juncture, we are not anywhere near that yet.
Okay, so I'm a little confused, and Megan, you can jump in at any point. You're mentioning the site, and I'm going to share the screen with the plan that is in the folder. This is a plan that was created by ET Engineering. It's signed by you, dated July 13th, 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm confused as to, because I think this is the first time I've heard this. So let's see, can you see the plan? Is that what you see, or do you see my calendar?
Yes, I see it very clearly.
Oh, good, because I
what
don't
is-
always do that correctly.
No, it's very good, Madam Chair. So,
So let me ask first of Megan. Megan, is this the first time I'm hearing about an abutting parcel or portion of the parcel that was carved off for the city of Brockton?
So the sewer easement that's been talking about, it originally was installed through several abutting properties that at the time were all owned by the applicant. So they were not separated post the enforcement order. They were pre-existing, I believe, as they are now, but they were all, or most of them, I believe, were in co-ownership by the applicant. In 2002 or shortly after, all of them except for the subject parcel were taken by the city of Brockton for taxes. So I think that's what's being referenced in terms of the other parcels. So when we go back to the 2002, 2001 enforcement, we were talking about multiple parcels. At this point, all except one have been taken for taxes by the city of Brockton. The applicant still owns the one called 53 Baker Street, which is the one shown on the plan that's on the screen currently. So it is one parcel. It was a separate parcel.
thank you for that clarification, Megan. I appreciate that.
But right now, Megan, are we talking at all about the other parcels, or we've been focused on this one parcel that's still owned by Mr. Musette,
Correct.
correct?
Yes.
Right,
Meg-
so
Megan?
everything, yes. What we're seeing on this current plan is just, and highlighted in green, the 53 Baker Street parcel. When we're talking about the multiple parcels is in reference to the early 2000s enforcement order and the replication restoration plan that was submitted in response to that enforcement. So that plan, which is dated back in 2001, shows all of the parcels that at the time were owned by the applicant and were impacted by the installation of the sewer line.
But at this point, because I don't like muddying the waters, are those other parcels relevant to what's before us now on Baker Street?
So I would say the concern is that in terms of the sewer line, we're talking about a linear disturbance. So the sewer line went through the subject parcel, but then it
Can you see the
continued
sewer, where the
through.
sewer line is located?
Yes, you can see sort of the
where-
remnants of the clear cutting. It has filled in, some of the wetlands have filled back in, but you can see both on the plan and visibly, you can see where the clearing was done to put in that sewer line. So the concern is in that they are separate parcels. Only one of them is now currently owned by the applicant, but we are talking about a linear sewer line that disrupted the BVW. So my concern is mostly with the idea of restoration and connectivity.
Yeah.
I think above all, the idea is, the commission wants to see restoration of the unpermitted disturbed area. The question of, what parcel that falls on, I think that comes down to, again, the idea of connectivity. If we want to look at it just at the 53 Baker Street, I think we need to keep in mind in terms of a connectivity standpoint. And I think we'd need to see a plan to confirm this, but my concern would be that could the restoration be proposed just on 53 Baker Street and still have proper connectivity to the wetland system while also addressing the enforcement order from 2002, be it through some matching of square footage or some configuration like that to try to translate what was proposed in 2002 to this current parcel. Again, that after the fact NOI from the early 2000s was tabled. There was never an order of conditions issued, but at this point it's kind of the starting point we have in terms of looking back at what was proposed for restoration at the time. So I think, it would make sense that it informs the restoration now. So I think in terms of if we just want to look at it as the 53 Baker Street, my big question would be, can restoration on 53 Baker Street achieve connectivity with the larger wetland system while meeting some sort of square footage or some sort of, compliance with what was suggested to rectify what happened in the early 2000s?
Mm-hmm. So what you're saying is your client and who is the wetland scientist that's working on this?
As of 2 weeks ago, Mr. Brad Holmes.
Okay, so the restoration plan needs to be developed.
Yes.
And what Megan has said in response to your bringing to light that this was part of there were other parcels associated with this and this disturbance extended onto the other parcels, is that connectivity and the impact of the disturbance needs to be taken into consideration with this restoration plan that you're developing. Is that a good, very simple summary, Megan?
Well, it's a good, simple summary, Madam Chair, and the reason.
I'm asking Megan if I
I thought you were.
if I accurately captured that in a very, very abbreviated way.
Yes, to make it brief, if we can't go through with the 2001 replication plan, and that is going to be translated to a new plan being proposed on 53 Baker Street. My concern with that is the connectivity, and we would need to see a plan to see if that would work.
Okay, so I'm going to revise what I said, which is they need to consider the 2001 restoration plan to see if it's possible or feasible. And if they determine it's not, they need to incorporate the connectivity issue in their new plan.
Yes, and I accept that. The only clarification I would like to offer is, and that is the whole idea of the parcels, because what was disturbed included this particular lot that you see the linear sewer construction. No matter whatever work we do on this property here will only expand the wetlands resource on this property. I think if Megan and I and the botanists were to go back out there, in order to achieve the ultimate connectivity, you have to actually go westerly onto the westerly to the abutting property where those wetlands can then connect. So it doesn't matter if I were to make this whole property here all wetlands. to actually make the connectivity from the south westerly to the north will require some work. Thank you. Oh, excellent, perfect, Madam Chair. So that will, to really make that connectivity, see where it says Myron Street, that word Myron actually needs to be expanded to connect westerly to the rest of the wetlands. But the reason I'm only focusing on my lot is that at this point in time, I'm not quite sure the mechanism for requiring that he do work on the abutting land. Yes, at the time it was done, he owned all that. But now he does not own all that anymore. So I'm not sure how much flexibility he would have on going on a abutting property and working on a abutting property.
That property is still owned by the city, correct, Megan?
Yes, there are a couple smaller parcels. I'd have to check each individual one, but I believe where the disturbance was and where the restoration was proposed were all owned by the applicant, again, at the time of disturbance, and were all taken by the city.
If restoration work was proposed on the parcels owned by the city, I mean, I would think that the city would be willing to grant a license or construction easement to do that work. But I don't know. I don't think we want to solve that tonight, because all I'm trying to say is that what I'm hearing from Megan is the restoration that was proposed and never completed needs to be considered and in some fashion incorporated into this parcel. And if the land was taken for tax purposes, I'm not even going to go there.
Yeah,
So,
I agree with you.
so you're saying that, so you folks have work that needs to be done and you're requesting. So is this the first time, is this an opening of the notice of intent? Because it was the request for determination of applicability that was before us previously that initiated this? Okay, so, and thank you, Azu, for bringing that to my attention. Did we receive a butter notification after all?
Yes.
Okay, I figured you would have stopped me if we had not. All right. Joanne, money?
Nothing from me.
Sparks here, nothing from me either.
Okay. How long would you like to continue?
I'm hoping, Madam Chair, that obviously next week is Thanksgiving. I'm hoping that I can get a plan put together with the botanist and then perhaps have a meeting with Megan to at least get some sort of a preliminary agreement on the restoration that we're proposing before we come back to the commission. So I would ask that we be continued to your meeting in December on the assumption that we may be able to make a real good headway with Megan on the restoration plan and the removal of the fill. At least that part can be done. The removal of the fill can be done right away. And I just don't want him to get in trouble running an equipment without an order of conditions, moving that fill. But if that is acceptable, I can have him start moving that fill away to an area that is further away from the BVW.
Megan, what do you think of that?
Is this the fill that's within the work area, or the fill that the historical as in from the 90s, the fill that's beyond the current work area?
Yeah, so if you'll remember, right up on the northwesterly end where he piled up some dirt and then put the silt fence, that is in the 25-foot buffer. And so we can move all that.
Yes, I did comment that because in addition, there's also piles of when it was cleared, there's stuff like brush and also that was piled past the limit of, well, the erosion control barrier in the 25-foot. I think, yeah, I specified that all that clearing brush needs to be taken out of the 25-foot.
Okay.
I think, you know, the that historical fill pile, the one that's from the 90s, I think I'd like to see it incorporated into an order of conditions, just because it would require, you know, basically accepting that it was filled wetlands. So that pile of fill that I talked about with Brad Holmes was a concern because I believe that pile represents filled wetlands, not wetlands in the not fill in the 25-foot. So I think it's two different issues. I think that the debris that is currently in the 25-foot, the stuff that's piled beyond the erosion control barrier, needs to be removed. I think anything that would be considered restoration, as in removal of fill from the wetlands that was added in the 90s, I think should be part of the restoration plan for the order of conditions. I don't think we should be removing any of that historical fill unless we establish that it needs to be removed as fill and there's an order of conditions, you know, regulating how it's going to be removed.
Okay. I have no problem with that, Madam Chair.
Okay. So you want to continue to December 16th?
Please.
Do we have a motion to continue to December 16th?
Joanne here, I'll make a motion to continue to December 16.
Do I have a second?
Sparks here, I second.
All in favor, Danielson, aye.
Sparks, aye.
Zigmund, aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And have a good Thanksgiving, whatever you can make out of it this COVID year. Stay safe.
You too. You too.
I told my grandkids to stay away from me. So
Okay.
have a good night now.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
All right, the next item on the agenda, 955 Belmont Street. Okay, so we have Danielle. Danielle, do you have anyone else with you? Eric?
Madam Chair, yes, we have a gaggle of people with us tonight. So my colleague, John Russell, Eric Simpson, and Michael Gazdaco from Colbia, Rich DeFusco, and Paul Sylvia from Ames Engineering.
Okay. All right.
Perfect. I think we have everyone. Megan, I think it was just John Russell, but he's probably joining just maybe via phone. So I just want to make sure he can log in.
I think that individual was also
perfect.
Made a panelist.
Great. So good evening, Madam Chair, Commission members, Attorney Danielle Dufault from Adler, Pollock & Sheehan on behalf of the applicant Colbia Enterprises LLC for its location at 955 Belmont Street in Brockton. If I can just make some quick introductions before I begin, with us this evening, we have from Colbia, we have our environmental manager, Eric Simpson, and our director of construction, Michael Gazdaco. From Ames Engineering, we have Rich DeFusco and Paul Sylvia, and my colleague from Adler, Pollock & Sheehan, John Russell. So just briefly about this project, and I do want to start by thanking Agent Chavez with all her help, kind of guiding us through this process. So it's been a great introduction to your city for us. So we really thank her for that. So just briefly, by way of, background, and I want Eric Simpson's going to just give you a little background about Colbia. and the company, and then I'll just do a very brief presentation for the commission.
Hi, Madam Chairman and members of the commission. I'm Eric Simpson with Colbia Enterprises. I'm Colbia's geologist and licensed site professional. I do environmental things for Colbia. Colbia is a family-run business based out of Cranston, Rhode Island. Back in 2008, we purchased this location from Shell Oil's retail arm and have been operating it as a Shell gas station and a convenience store with a Mary Lou's coffee shop installed. And for a couple of years now, we've been eyeing this location as one to renovate into our Seasons Corner Market brand, which is a brand of gas station convenience stores that does fly the Shell banner. But we basically take some of these old 1960s era gas stations and we basically tear them down and rebuild them as something a little bit more in tune and in line with a New England style pitched roof, some stone facade on the front, and try to make them a lot nicer. So we're kind of excited to be able to do this project. It's located right, as you know, on Route 123, right into the entrance of Brockton. And we think we're pretty happy about some of the improvements that we have. And I know Danielle will start talking about that, but we're looking to remove some items from inside the 25-foot buffer zone that are there now that were built, way back when, try to get the gas tanks away from the wetlands border. And I think overall we're looking to do a nice improvement on this project. So that's what we're here for. I'll turn it back over to Danielle.
Thank you, Eric. So Madam Chair, if I can just give a brief presentation, if that's acceptable to you.
Yes, please do.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric. So as Eric was saying, this is a raise and rebuild to bring what Colbia acquired in 2008 in align with the family business and the branding of these Season Corner Market stores. And it will be a raise of the existing approximately 1,800 square foot building and replacing it with a 4,600 square foot building, keeping but redoing the drive-through and bypass lanes. And I can share my screen. I apologize. I probably should have done that first. So can everyone see the screen, Madam Chair and Commission members? Just okay.
Yeah.
So this is the site improvement plan here. So as I was saying, replacing the existing building with this 4,600 square foot Seasons Corner Market C-store, redoing the drive-through and bypass lane at the northern border of the property. We will, as Eric had mentioned, we will be currently the trash enclosure is located at the northwest quarter of the property, and we will be relocating it, as you can see, over to the northeast corner of the property, well outside of even the 100-foot buffer. We will be raising the existing canopy, replacing it, and the existing 4 pumps with a new canopy, 5 brand new pumps. And we will also be taking currently there are 4 USTs which are located within the 50-foot buffer at the westerly boundary of the property, and moving them, as you can see, over to the easterly boundary of the property. And we will be replacing those 4 USTs with 2 double-walled fiberglass USTs. So again, well outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. We also, as part of the raise and rebuild, and we've indicated, and I'm not sure whether and we apologize for submitting this one sheet a little late. We revised the site improvement plans to indicate, and I can show you, I have added this to the site I have up to show you on the screen. We previously had shown the snow storage removal on the westerly border of the property and on the easterly side of the new C-store. And we have per a recommendation from Agent Chavez, which was well received. Colbia has proposed to take what the snow storage area that was previously in the 50-foot buffer zone and to move it to the northern boundary line of the property. So again, outside of the 100-foot buffer zone and obviously outside of the 50-foot buffer zone. The one other thing, and why one of the other main reasons we're in front of the commission tonight is approval of the stormwater management plan, which has been provided to the commission and reviewed by Beta in its peer review. I think as the commission has read, there is currently no stormwater management plan at this location. So arguably a little improvement or any improvement is a great improvement. But I'm happy to report Mbta has recognized in their revised peer review letter, I'm not sure if the commission received that yet, but it was issued, I believe, yesterday, that the stormwater management plan that Colbia has proposed, including in the site, will capture 97% of all runoff at the site, which obviously is a great improvement from zero. So with that, we're happy to, and if I may just add, we've received the revised report from Agent Chavez with the three proposed conditions. Those conditions are acceptable to Colbia. I believe that Beta in their revised report had approximately six proposed conditions that would be special conditions that would be included in the order of conditions, and those as well would be acceptable to Colbia, other than a few minor kind of details to be corrected in the plans. And if I may point out, there was a conversation between AUB Engineering and representative from Beta this afternoon, and correspondence to Agent Chavez regarding the same. And I think one of the main sticking points that Beta had in its review of the project was with catch basin number 1 and the potential downgrade and positioning of that catch basin. And I believe, and Agent Chavez can correct me, my understanding of the correspondence to Agent Chavez is if the grading is reconfigured slightly, the request by Beta for an additional basin and emergency shutoff valve will not be necessary. And beyond that, some of the requests by Beta seem to be something that we can take care of in short order. So with that, Madam Chair, I welcome any questions.
Megan, would you like to comment and just review your report with us?
Yes, so in terms of my report, my revised report, most of my comments from my previous report have been addressed. So basically, rechecking the survey and updating the plans to show the correct location of the wetlands line, the 25-foot no disturb, and the limit of work have been revised. And at this point then, in terms of the wetlands impacts, I don't have any additional comments besides my recommendations as mentioned for the special conditions for an order of conditions. So specifically that the erosion control barrier be supplemented with silt fence in the area where the retaining wall is proposed, just because there is some grading proposed close to that limit of work. I'm recommending that 50-foot buffer zone that's proposed to be loamed and seeded be seeded with a native seed mix like the New England Conservation Wildlife mix, just because it is currently vegetated. So we'd like to see it reseeded with something a little more substantial than standard grass. So if they could seed it with a wildlife mix, I think that would be more appropriate for the 50-foot. And similarly for that, when they're seeding within the site, not to use hay bales or hay mulch, just to avoid the issue of invasives in the seed heads getting in. So those were the limits of my comments in terms of special conditions. In terms of Beta's stormwater, I can concur with Danielle's conversation that the representatives had with Beta just prior to this meeting, that in regards to their stormwater comment 14, Beta conveyed to me today that they do agree that if the grading can be revised on the plan to ensure that there won't be issues down gradient of the pump area in case of a spill, if that could be done, then their comment about the additional oil grit separator and the emergency shutoff would not be needed. So I can confirm that. And Beta's understanding was that all the other comments, it seems like the representatives would be able to address them within the following week. And so it sounds like then Beta's expecting that all the comments can be addressed in the revision of the plan that's upcoming.
Okay, so I'm going to start with that first in my comments. So there's still a little bit of work and revised plans that need to be submitted and reviewed and finalized with Beta before we can close the hearing.
My understanding, yes, is that Beta does want to see that revised grading in relation to catch basin 1 to confirm that indeed that additional grit separator and emergency shutoff aren't needed, and that they can, cancel out that comment if the grading is as discussed.
Right. And I, just as a point of reference, I don't know if you were going to try to ask or not, but it's the commission's policy not to close hearings pending information and revised plans and such. I just, a couple of questions. One, have there ever been any releases on this site in the past?
Madam Chair, I'd like to direct your question possibly either to Eric Simpson or one of the AU representatives that could probably speak on to that question.
Hi, this is Eric. I can speak to that. Back when Motiva Shell, the previous owner, had the property, there were a few different releases that were recorded with Mass DEP that received release tracking numbers. There was soil and groundwater contamination along the front of the property and near the existing gas tanks that are slated to be removed. There was an investigation. There was some soil removal and remediation done by Shell prior to Colbia's purchase of the property, and the release tracking number was closed with the DEP with a risk assessment. We are aware that there is some residual material in the ground that has some petroleum impacts that are below the residential standard, but above laboratory detection limits. That material is going to be removed as a matter of course when we do the development.
And disposed of properly.
Correct, yes. It'll be tracked with the bill of lading with Mass DEP and disposed that way, off-site and permitted. So we are anticipating that there'll be some residual, I guess, added cleanup of the old Shell issues from back in the day when we do this work. So we kind of view it as a win-win.
Yeah. So Megan, I'm just going to suggest that maybe one of our conditions also address that comment that or condition that any contamination that is encountered during the development process be properly reported or as needed and properly removed and disposed of.
Okay, yes.
Kind of a standard condition for a site that has historic contamination. Looking at the landscaping plan, which I appreciate the amount of landscaping material. I am noticing that while several of the plants are native species, they're mostly cultivars. And I would like to see true natives used. And I know landscape architects like to argue that you can't get the same level of showiness and attractiveness and there are a lot of native species that can provide color and visual interest. And I think a couple of my commissioners my fellow commissioners will attest to that. And let's see, and I just had one. Yeah, that was it. That's my comments. Bonnie?
I don't have any questions, and I will always support the further expansion of native plants, which we've lost so many of, so many of. And I know that there are local areas that are native nurseries, which I can't recall at the time, but I'm happy to give that information if it's requested.
Yeah, thank you. Joanne?
I just have one question. This might have been covered, but I just want to double check. So I was looking at a Google Earth image of the site as it currently exists. And is it right that the parking spaces on the east side of the property, so where all that parking space pavement is currently, that pavement is being removed and instead replaced by the loam and seed and the decorative border?
So let me, if I'm understanding you correctly, are you talking about over here?
Yes.
Parking spaces? Yes. Excuse me. So this is the existing conditions plan of the site currently. So these spaces here will be removed. And if I'll try not to get everybody really give motion sickness to everybody and go a little slower.
Yeah, I was trying to.
Can you zoom in on that a little bit more, Danielle?
On the existing conditions?
Well, wherever you land, if you could just zoom it in a little bit,
yeah,
it would be easier to see.
Okay, so this is
that's
existing,
good.
Right? So this is existing, and I believe this is this really almost runs, the directional arrow really runs, this, so north, the north property, northern border of the property here. So these parking spaces along the westerly side.
Oh yes, I meant west.
Here. Oh no, trust me, I have been corrected myself. So I'm doing this for my purposes to reorient myself on this. So these spaces will be removed. And let me just scroll down to the proposed site plan. And I'm going to scroll one more page because this is where we propose the replacing the snow storage area. So as you can see previously, those spaces were proposed over here. They'll be moved to both in front of the store, the C-store, and along the easterly border here. And the reason we're able to do that is, so if you can recall from up above, the elongated canopy allows for these spaces here in front of the C-store, where the current canopy is more of just a square right here, and there's no way that traffic flow would, we could allow for traffic flow with that size canopy and be able to replace the parking spaces.
So that space on the west then is all planted.
So, and we can scroll down to the
It's a drive-through.
landscaping plan. So
Yeah, this is the one I was looking
proposed, at. Yep, so this is a proposed landscaping plan. And so the removal of the spaces that were here and landscaping to be included on the westerly border. Oh, there's my arrow.
So in the process of removing that pavement and replacing it with the space for planting, is there a risk of disturbance within the 25-foot buffer zone, or is the pavement far away from that to be able to do that work without disturbance?
So my rule is I stay in my lane, and as an attorney, I'm going to stay in my lane and let AU, either Paul or Rich from AU answer that question. But I believe because of the grading, and here I think Agent Chavez's reviewed these plans, but maybe Rich and Paul could speak to that for us.
Yes, I'm Richard DeFusco. I'm a registered landscape architect with Ames Engineering. The existing pavement is far enough away. We don't anticipate there will be any disturbance of the 25-foot no disturb buffer, except in a very small area where the existing trash enclosure does cross that border. There will have to be some disturbance to remove the trash enclosure, since it's being moved to the other side of the property. And that will be restored with the loam and seed conservation mix as requested.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Okay. I don't know if there are any members of the public. Doesn't look like it. So would you like to continue to the December 16th meeting?
So, Madam Chair, yes, I was advised that you don't like to close out hearings until we've checked all the boxes. So I was well informed and prepared and understand the commission's position and respect it, of course. So we would like to request a continuance to the December hearing. We hope to have all of this done in short order and revise plans back to Agent Chavez quickly, and cognizant of the fact that we are excited to move forward in this process. So we will get those to you as quickly as possible and hope for an issuance of order of conditions at the December hearing.
Okay, do I have a motion to continue to December 16th?
So moved. Joanne here.
Second?
Sparks here, I second.
All in favor, Danielson, aye.
Sparks, aye.
Zigmund, aye.
Motion passes to continue to the 16th. Thank you. And
Thank
it sounds like you've been moving along in the right path and reaching out and to do all the homework and ahead of time to keep this moving forward. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And Madam Chair, if I could, we would welcome, if you could share it with Agent Chavez, and I've been emailing with her fairly consistently. If the commission had suggestions on native plantings that they'd prefer and it makes sense for our client, we'd love to explore that option. So
Again, the plant material that's shown, it substantially appears to be native species, but cultivars.
yeah.
So again, true native species are preferred. They actually are more resistant, are healthier in the long term, and provide better wildlife value.
Yeah. Obviously,
So-
if it can make sense to the client and it's feasible, in their business model, and we can accommodate, we'd love to explore those options. So if Agent Chavez could provide that to us, we'd like to look into it.
And a good resource, I think the landscape architects have access to this. One of my resources I go to is the USDA plant database to identify whether something's a true native or a cultivar or, is introduced to the area versus a native species. And there's a lot of good information out there about how to use native materials in ornamental landscaping so that it becomes something more than just ornamental. So, but thank you for asking.
Thank you.
All right, the last item on, the last project on the agenda is a notice of intent for the Whitman Sewer Force Main Easement, Alger Street, Thatcher Street, and Southfield Drive. Would everyone who is here for that, who is here representing that meeting, please raise their
Let
hands?
me to move some people back.
Who has, Dennis has his hand raised.
I thought I added Dennis. Hold on.
There's Dennis.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Alyssa Longo. I'm an engineer with Environmental Partners. And also with Environmental Partners, we have Ziad Carey here. And we are working with Dennis Smith and the Town of Whitman's Department of Public Works on this project to replace their 20-inch sewer force main, which is about, let me just share this figure so everyone kind of has an idea of the project. So the town owns approximately 16,000 linear feet of a 20-inch sewer force main. It was installed back in 1984. And while it starts within the town of Whitman, up here between Auburn Street and Alger Street is where it crosses over into the city of Brockton. So about 6,000 feet of the existing force main is within this heavily forested easement within the city of Brockton. And then there's another 2,500 feet or so that is within the roadway and terminating along Southfield Drive. Back in 2016 and then again in 2017, the force main experienced 2 breaks right in the area of the town line. And after repairing these, the town asked us to help investigate the conditions of the soil and the conditions of the pipe and try to determine what caused these breaks and what would need to be done to stop any further breaks. So at that time, we came to the commission and we presented the plan to clear this entire easement. It's approximately 30 feet wide. And we were looking to clear the easement to provide access for our investigation and for in the event of any further breaks. That clearing was completed under an emergency certification at the time. And so based on the recommendation in speaking with Megan, we moved all that clearing work into this new NOI. So some of the areas reflected in the permit are associated with the clearing that has already taken place. And once the easement was cleared, we were able to investigate the conditions of the soil, and we determined that there was highly corrosive soils surrounding the pipe, and that had corroded the force main in a couple areas, and that had caused the breaks and the leaks. So our recommendation at this time was to replace the force main in its entirety. And we're proposing to replace it along the same alignment. It's going to be equivalently sized, and we'll be using plastic pipe, a combination of HDPE and PVC, which should be more resistant to the corrosive soils. Throughout the project, we plan to typically use open cut excavation and installation, except in this area here where we have the Beaver Brook and a second unnamed stream. And in that area, we plan to use some horizontal directional drilling or similar trenchless technology, just so that we can go beneath the stream and to avoid dredging or disturbances. As part of the replacement, we'll be installing some new manholes for air release and for cleanouts at the high and low points. And those manholes should pretty closely match the existing manholes. Additional resource areas within this site besides Beaver Brook and the associated bank area, we have BVW and the buffer zone. We have also bordering land subject to flooding. So that's all present within the existing alignment and the proposed alignment as well. As far as permitting, we've submitted a notice intent to the Town of Whitman's Conservation Commission as well. We've submitted these drawings to Mass Historical Commission, to the Army Corps of Engineers, and we've also submitted an environmental notification form with MIPA. In speaking with Mass DEP, we determined that the 401 water quality and Chapter 91 would not be required for this project. So I think that's the majority of the background information. Included in the plans were some construction details as far as construction mats and filter sock, dewatering, and restoration with loam and seed of the affected areas. So if the commission has any questions about those details or about the proposed work, go ahead.
So Megan, would you like to comment?
Yes, so just to start out, I do want to make the commission aware in case they weren't. So as was already mentioned, the environmental notification form has been submitted to MIPA because the project does exceed 2 thresholds that have listed. So one, the length of the sewer line being proposed, and also the fact that alteration of 5,000 or more square feet of bordering vegetated wetlands is proposed. So that's why the ENF has been submitted. And again, I just want to make the commission aware that the consultation session for that ENF will be held, I believe it's this coming Monday, it's November 23rd. And so that is the consultation where BEPA invites the various agencies, representatives, and citizens to be involved. Public comment is open until December 2nd. So again, I just wanted to make the commission aware that that is sort of a parallel process that is going on at the same time as this. In terms of the rest of my report, so yes, I can confirm, again, at this point, I have walked this easement 3 times as best I can. It's a tricky site. Even after the clearing, it is a tricky site. It is a very wet site. And so my report details the exact resource areas as I've found them. But overall, again, the NOI is proposing about 100,000 square feet of alteration to the BVW, 45 square feet of alterations to land underwater. And that is just through the horizontal or trenchless digging. The idea being that the pipe is going to have to encounter some land under the bed of those 2 streams. So that's why it's a small amount of alteration to land underwater proposed. And then 17,000 square feet to bordering land subject to flooding, and 6,000 square feet to area within 200 feet of Beaver Brook. Now Brockton, because it's considered densely developed, technically our riverfront area is only 25 feet. So that 6,000 square feet would technically be smaller by Brockton, but it's 6,000 square feet within 200 feet. And so I've pointed out that this project, because it is a utility and it's a public utility as a sewer, it can be considered a limited project under 310 CMR 1053 3D. So it can be given that sort of allowance there, but there are conditions. There's 4 conditions that in particular, the 2, 3, and 4 are applicable to this project, in that the best available measures shall be used to minimize adverse effects during construction. Number 3, the surface vegetation and contours of the area need to be substantially restored. And 4, all sewer lines should be constructed to minimize inflow and leakage. And so from my perspective, I was kind of looking at those conditions 2 and 3. And so my comments on the vegetation clearing, I made a comment on just clarifying how the vegetation will be substantially restored. So my assumption is that it will be mostly passive restoration because there isn't a vegetation management proposed besides reseeding of the disturbed areas. So beyond that, I'm assuming passive restoration here. And so my recommendation would be that an order of conditions specify that this clearing is just for this sewer installation project. Going forward, if future removal is required, it should be filed as its own vegetation management plan specifying the exact width in which future work will need to be done, under the assumption that while the 30-foot wide easement is required to do this replacement work, we'd need to see justification of why a 30-foot width would need to be maintained for routine access to the sewer main. So if that 30 feet is not necessary to be permanently cleared, I think we'd need to see a vegetation management plan proposing future removal at a width more suitable for the routine access in the future. And then my other major comment is related to erosion control and site stabilization. So there have been erosion controls proposed, the silt socks on either side of the easement boundary, off-site stockpiling of materials, use of construction mats and rubber tires. There are details of a silt bag shown for a dewatering plan, but my concern is specifically about how the site will be stabilized during flooded conditions. So as I've noted during my site inspections and as the town of Whitman's environmental scientist noted, the site on either side of Beaver Brook and on either side of that unnamed stream do flood with over a foot of standing and sometimes flowing water. So for example, I was last walking the easement this past Monday following the rainstorm we had Sunday night. And as I approached BVW, the BVW that leads up to Beaver Brook, I was walking through flowing water over a foot deep that was running north to south through the easement. So that does raise concerns for me of, again, it's mostly proposing open trench excavation to replace the sewer main. So my concern is having some sort of contingency plan or further explanation of how the site can be dewatered or stabilized under conditions that we've observed in that easement in terms of flooding. And so then finally, my other comments at the end were just related to carrying over some of the special conditions from the emergency certification, that no grubbing would occur beyond what's needed to clear the alignment of the force main itself, and that no gravel or additional fill be brought into the site because that would affect both the limited project designation, and I think it would affect the stormwater report, because as it's proposed now, there are no proposed changes in surface or contours or soil. So that's under the presumption that nothing new needs to be brought in so that the stormwater characteristics will remain the same and the presumed passive restoration will go forward until future maintenance is proposed. So that's sort of my overall based on the information we have to date.
Okay, and that's all been provided in your report to
Yes.
the applicant. It's getting late. That was quite a bit of information, and I don't know if you've had a chance to read Megan's report, but I am thinking you're probably not going to be able to respond to all of those comments tonight. And in light of the hour, my recommendation, I'd like to see if the commissioner, my fellow commissioners have any other comments or questions, but maybe continue to the December meeting and give you folks an opportunity to prepare a response. Joanne?
I have no questions at this time, no.
Bonnie?
I have no questions at this time.
Okay. Megan, I do have just one question on you referenced the stormwater report. Do we have Beta reviewing stormwater management for the project, or is this?
We have
really
not requested, I mean, I did a review of it, and again, as proposed, they are not proposing changing contours, changing, you know, soil conditions. So if that really is the case, you know, the stormwater report makes sense. So at this point, we had not sent it out to Beta. I mean, it could, because also it is a municipal project. So, you know, there was no fee for the filing. So as of this point, the stormwater report review has been limited to my review.
Okay, and it's, again, if they're not, without changing contours, increasing impervious surface, although there will be, it sounds like there will be more clearing. But it's, what I was going to say, it's mostly keeping everything stable during construction activities.
Yes,
Would that be safe to say?
That is my concern. Again, with the stormwater report, I'm not, you know, I'm in agreement that there shouldn't be changes to, you know, rates of runoff, to recharge, to water quality. Again, my major concern is with erosion control and stabilization, doing open trench in flood-prone areas. I think we need a more substantial, you know, dewatering and contingency plan for if we should have a big storm. You know, how do you stabilize the parts that have already been redisturbed?
Right. So Alyssa, what I would like to see is a written response to the comments and concerns raised by Megan. And I would like to see the meeting continued, the hearing continued to the next meeting of the commission.
If I may add, Megan, we did put, as part of the geotechnical work that we just recently completed, we put 5 monitoring wells along the alignment, and you know, we got there late September. There's actually no water in the easement, believe it or not. I know following rain events, you see a lot of the standing water. It's probably perched water. It's not really going into the ground. And again, we could go back and measure these wells at different intervals and report to you in the response that we're going to provide.
Okay, I mean, I think my concern is that, you know, it might not always be sustained surface water, but again, having been out there 3 times, 2 of those 3 times have been post clearing, and in both cases, you know, on 2 separate days when I've been out there, portions of the easement have been understanding water to the point where the existing erosion controls are completely submerged and are being bypassed by the standing or flowing water. And so that is my concern that, you know, going forward, they're doing the open trench. They have, you know, you can't immediately reseed and revegetate that area. So the assumption is even if they can dewater a very small area where they're currently working, the concern is after these storm events. I mean, I saw it on Monday, water flowing north to south across the easement, over a foot deep over the erosion control barriers. So that is the concern of, if you have a further destabilized site, you're going to have runoff washing over the easement and out the other side. And is there a contingency plan we can put in place to better contain the easement, if that's possible?
Yeah, I mean, we could enhance a little bit on the dewatering plan, perhaps the use of the frag tanks, just to mitigate with, water quality there on the discharge side, localized erosion controls. That will be part of our design, details that we provide on the plans. But that definitely will answer the questions to you, put them in the memo format, and we'll send it to you before the next meeting.
Okay.
Sounds great. So can I ask for a motion to continue? I'm looking to some agreement from the applicant.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion from the commission to continue to December 16th?
Joanne here, I'll make a motion to continue to December 16th.
Do I have a second?
Sparks here, I second.
All in favor? Danielson, aye.
Sparks, aye.
Zigmund, aye.
Okay, motion passes. Mr. Carey, do you pronounce your name Ziad?
Correct.
Are you at Borderland tonight? I'd like you.
I live across from Borderland.
That's the lodge, right?
Yeah, that is. I'm not
All
there,
right.
but I live across from
Are
there.
you an Eastonite?
Yes,
I work for the town of Easton.
I recognize your name. You're the planner, right?
I am. Thank you. All right. That's all for you folks for tonight. Thank you very much.
Appreciate the time.
Same here. All right, the next item on the agenda, an update on enforcement for 219 Bellevue and Pearl Street.
Okay, so
Megan.
I believe we have some people here for the 219 Bellevue that I can add.
Okay, yeah, Scott Faria has his, someone must have just made him a, okay. Scott, unmute yourself. If you'd spoken up earlier, I might have taken this out of order.
No, that's all right, Madam Chair. I know you already told me tonight you like to go in order.
All right, I am taking a 3-minute break. I will be right back.
Thank you.
I promise. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay, Megan, do you want to start?
Sure. So this is a follow-up to the enforcement order that was issued to 219 Bellevue Ave. So this is a case of the property, when the house was constructed, was issued an order of conditions for that house with a limit of work that was, some of it was at the 25-foot no touch. I believe the closest point was more like 18 to 15 feet. So it was a limit of work at the time constrained by how close the wetlands were. So they did receive their certificate of compliance in 2017, confirming that the house was constructed as proposed and that the limit of work was as shown. However, during a recent inspection at an abutting property, I noticed an expansive back lawn along with 2 large accessory structures and a patio behind this house. And from reviewing the aerial imagery, it appears that all of that work is beyond that approved limit of work, and on the actually western side of the property looks like it crosses the property boundary into the parcel owned by the Rocky Mountain Springwater Corp. So based on that, it looked like grounds to me that certainly the 25-foot had been encroached on. Based on my measurements, certainly some BVW had been encroached on, which is why we issued the enforcement order and ratified it at the last meeting. And so coming into this meeting, I sent a follow-up letter to the owner at 29 Bellevue Ave as a confirmation that this enforcement order had been issued.
Okay, Scott, Attorney Rubin, who is going to speak?
I think we're gonna have Scott Farrier speak for us, as we've, Scott and I have reviewed the October 8th, 2020 letter that was sent to Ms. Dos Reyes, and is aware of the mitigation measures that were asked of the homeowner. And I'll let, Scott's familiar with the site, and so we'll let Scott sort of go through what our plans are here.
Thanks, Attorney Rubin. So, Madam Chair, just, we kind of just started getting up to speed on this at the end of last week. So, understanding the agent's report, we certainly know we have the path that we need to take. We've consulted with Brad Holmes to go out there and do the first step that we need to take care of, which would be to flag the wetlands on the site as they sit today. Just, you know, in case they've changed since that certificate of compliance was issued. So first thing we're going to do is have Brad go out there and flag it. My company will go out and do an existing condition survey to look at the existing wetlands, see where all the structures that Megan mentioned in her report, to see where they fit and sit on the property. And I think from there, then we'll have to work with Brad and with Megan on, you know, deciding at least to start with what kind of mitigation we're looking at to resolve the issues. But like I said, right now, besides looking at the aerials that Megan provided, it's hard to tell for sure exactly what kind of encroachment we're talking about, whether it's just a 25-foot encroachment or a BVW encroachment. But as I said, we'll work with Brad, and Brad will work with Megan, as we're getting good at doing lately on some of these jobs. So we'll work together and try to come up with a solution that'll resolve the issues. So I think, long story short, I think we'd like to continue it until the January meeting, just so we can have time. Brad's typically about 10 days out on normal timing with the holiday. I don't know if that's different, but it'll probably be the very beginning of December before he gets out there to flag the wetlands. And then, as I said, I need to do my survey work. So I don't think we'd be able to get on before you folks in December. I can certainly communicate with Megan as we go along, and as Brad gets his work going on the site, just to keep her up to date so she can update you folks at your next meeting.
Okay, Megan, are they going to need to file a notice of intent and after the fact, or?
Yes, and I believe that's what's stipulated in the enforcement order, just because, again, based on my review, clearly work has been done that's under the jurisdiction of the commission. So a notice of intent needs to be filed to properly permit the work that has been done. And again, I'm anticipating that mitigation will be needed, just based on, again, reviewing the old wetlands line, reviewing the aerials. I'm anticipating that there has been encroachment that will need mitigation. So I would expect that that would be involved in the after the fact notice of intent, which would also be used to permit as much of the work that can be permitted.
Okay, I mean, it sounds like you're on the right track. Joanne, Bonnie, any comments from either Ms. Dos Reyes? Is that how we pronounce your name? Okay.
I don't think she's gonna comment.
Okay. Joanne, Bonnie?
Nothing for me.
Sparks here, nothing from me.
Okay, we look forward to seeing continued progress towards resolution and hearing back from you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Great. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
And do we have the January date? I'm sorry.
The January date is the 13th.
Okay, 1/13. I know I heard that earlier, but
Yep.
It's the third Wednesday of January.
no problem. Okay.
It's the 20th.
All right, the
Thank you.
next item on the agenda is an enforcement correspondence update for Pearl Street.
Okay, so I believe Azu is no longer here, but I did
Okay, let
speak.
me, Ms. Dos Rios, we're done and you can log off if you'd like.
Thank you. Okay, yes, so I did speak to Azu today and he did send, I asked for a progress report in writing since he couldn't stay on to discuss further. I thought a written follow-up would be sufficient so that we can get the details. So basically I sent a follow-up to James Victorine to explain that the commission needs an update on the work towards him filing a notice of intent for work on the site. So I received follow-up that he is working with Azu to prepare that NOI. I guess recently as yesterday, Kenneth Thompson, a wetland scientist, was out there and was observed out there flagging the wetlands. And so I believe in Azu's correspondence. Yes, so in the coming week, and Azu also says that he has done the topographic survey, and next week he is planning on doing a subsurface soil evaluation for groundwater. And it says his anticipation is that they'll be submitting the NOI on November 30th. So based on that, it seems like in response to this follow-up, there has been motion towards getting that NOI filed. So I'm expecting therefore an NOI to be filed sometime around November 30th as proposed. And that would give us the filing for what is proposed to be a single family house is the information we've been provided so far.
Okay. All right, well, in both cases, it sounds like we're moving forward. Anything else? The minutes, I have been flat out the last 2 weeks. Pam, I actually opened up the file and started looking at it.
Okay.
I found one typo to start, but I didn't get much beyond the first page,
Well, I
so I
corrected
don't.
one today, so maybe that's the same typo.
Okay, probably is. It was like a double she or something. It was.
Oh, no, that's not it then.
But I don't know if Bonnie and Joanne, did you folks have a chance to?
Yeah, so I definitely didn't check for grammar or typos. But I did read it and did a general. I just checked to see if what I read looked right. And as far as what I read, it looked accurate and correct, and I didn't have anything to
Actually,
add.
Bonnie, content, looking for content and making sure it's accurate is more important than the grammar checks.
Oh, I'm so bad at those. I'm exactly the person who will put the extra she in there. I'll do that.
I also had a look at them. I just had one word change to Pam. That was a typo, but that's it.
Do we want to vote to accept them?
Joanne here, I'd make a motion to accept the minutes from the last meeting.
Do I have a second?
Sparks, I second.
All in favor, Danielson, aye.
Sparks, aye.
Zygmunt, aye.
Okay. So I'm assuming there's nothing else from Pam and Megan. Joanne, Bonnie, and I wanted to spend a few more minutes to kind of talk about how we might be able to create a little promo to attract new members to seek appointment. Do you folks want to hang on? If not, someone would need to make one of us a host so you can log off and go do better things.
Stephanie, can I suggest that we just park this for the night? My brain is a little
Yes.
bit fried.
What I would like to do, please, I would like a second, what I would like to do is I would like to send an email with my proposal that I have kind of thrown together with the hope of having a reply, maybe input, and we can go from there if that is agreeable.
Perfect.
That sounds great.
Perfect. Love it. Love
I
it.
do have a quick question. Pam, do you know if the mayor has acted on that application at all yet?
To unmute myself. I do not know. I do know there's been some conversation. I did speak with a member of his office staff
Okay.
and they were aware.
I'm just going to ask a question. When we have a viable warm body candidate, isn't it just make a recommendation to the council and then they vote? And we can all, you know, if we know it's coming up for the vote, we can reach out to our counselors and say, please support this.
Yeah.
I have nothing to say.
A little bit discouraging. I hope she doesn't lose interest.
I know it's, yeah, I'm feeling the same way.
She has not as of yet.
Oh, good. That's good news.
That he has not, are you being sarcastic? That's
No,
good
I said
news?
she has not.
Oh.
No, she has not lost interest.
I thought you were saying the mayor hadn't done anything and Joanne was like,
No.
yay.
No.
Oh, boy. All right. So yes, Bonnie, I think that's a wonderful idea. And I'm with Joanne. I'm done for the night. So.
As we all are.
Thank you, everyone. I think for all the items we had on the agenda, we did a great job of keeping everything moving. And thank you, Megan, for